Hey there everybody, this is Brian Fink from the Church of the Resurrection with a word from the DCC. And there's this old theater adage, I think it's sometimes attributed to a guy named Chekhov, and it goes like this, something like this. If you're going to put a gun on the mantle in the first act, you better fire it by the third, or don't bother putting it there at all. And in the very first episode of A Word from the DCC, I said, hey, check out my books. So I thought today I would share with you 5 of maybe the most important books that I've ever read or that I've come across as a result of my desire to grow in the faith. And there's 5 books out of 5 million. How do you choose 5? But what I decided in choosing from my lovely plethora of books here is thinking about books kind of like friends. And at different parts in our lives, friends are really important, and then we grow and we mature, and they might move out of our lives for a time and maybe come back, and maybe you're friends on Facebook, but that never works out very well, as we talked about before. So I thought what I would do is choose 5 books that I've come back to over and over and over again. Books that have stuck with me, books that I've annotated in the most, or that I've used often in reference. So here's 5, and we'll see how it goes, okay? So first is the Catechism. You got to start with the Catechism. And I know what you might be thinking. You're like, Fink's just picking the Catechism because he wants everybody to know how smart and nerdy he is, and I kind of am. That's true. Let's just be honest. But more than that, far greater than that, is the fact that the Catechism is the richest, fullest, most complete document that the Church has ever produced. So says Benedict XVI when he was working for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. So that's saying something. The Catechism isn't a book that you read all the way through in one sitting or from start to finish. It is truly a reference book, but it contains within it the greatest depth of patristic history, the fathers of the Church from the earliest writers, the greatest source of scriptural references that source what we actually believe as Catholics. It's filled with documents relating to all the writings of the popes and all throughout history, the writings of the saints. So start with the Catechism, be in the middle with the Catechism, end with the Catechism. This is not a book that should remain on the shelf. It should be one that you access on a regular basis. Okay? Good. Catechism. Now, second, a few weeks ago, I had the chance to be a guest on the Armchair Catholic, which you should definitely check out. It's done by a group of men in our local diocese. And one of the hosts asks me, well, what books should they read if they're trying to get started in the intellectual life? And at first I was like, I don't know. But the first thought that I had in mind was C.S. Lewis. If you have not read Mere Christianity, you got to read it. In my opinion, which is worth about this much, it is the clearest, most succinct, most whimsical and enjoyable consideration of what we believe as Christians. It's absolutely foundational. And what's best about it is that it's really accessible. It's filled with rich language, but not language that's beyond the scope of your average reader, your average believer. So, C.S. Lewis, that's a place to start. All right? Let's see here. Second, if you're ready to move on to something a little more intellectually meaty, I'm going to recommend Theology and Sanity, or there's a shorter version called Theology for Beginners by a guy named Frank Sheed. I hear a lot about Frank Sheed. He's known most for the street evangelization movement that became really popular in the church and kind of still has a strong movement now. But from start to finish, I find that Frank Sheed covers every major doctrine that we believe as Catholics, that we profess as Catholics. And he considers them in a way that helps us to see that what we believe is reasonable, that what we believe isn't mumbo-jumbo, that it's not this far-fetched leap of faith that's not grounded in reality. It's rich, it's meaty, it's deep. Definitely recommend Frank Sheed. Okay? Good. Good. All right, let's see here. Number 3 and 4, I'm going to recommend to you two of my favorite works from probably my favorite author, a guy named Josef Pieper. You should just read everything that he's ever written because he is extraordinary. He's a German philosopher. I think he died in 1997, contemporary of Benedict XVI, and everything that he writes is just tremendous. So I'm just going to recommend two for you. He has two treatises, one on the theological virtues called Faith, Hope, Love, and another called the Four Cardinal Virtues, Prudence, Justice, Fortitude, Temperance. So definitely check out Josef Pieper. Okay? What am I at? 4? Was that 4? Was that 5? I can't even remember. I'm going to end with my man, Benedict XVI, An Introduction to Christianity. And this is sort of an ironic title. Actually, a priest friend of mine, when he was in process of converting from Anglicanism, he said, I was trying to learn more about, Christianity in general, and I was kind of an atheist, and I was kind of thinking about Anglicanism, and I thought, I'll just pick up an introductory book by someone who I thought was pretty smart. Introduction to Christianity by Pope Benedict XVI. A tremendous, deep, profound consideration of doctrine. Benedict has a profound understanding of the Scriptures and is so rooted and so logical and so clear. So definitely you got to read Introduction to Christianity by Benedict XVI. Now I think that was 5, I can't even remember at this point, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention my current modern author, a guy named Dr. Anthony Esolen. He's a professor at Thomas More College in New Hampshire, and everything that I read of his is just tremendous. It's saturated with the truth. He's a prophetic voice for our time, and he's just fearless. And I love that about him as a writer. He's a literature professor, a medieval scholar by trade, but he has a profound knowledge and depth of understanding of the Catholic faith. So whether you read his texts, I would recommend Out of the Ashes. It's his most recent and most popular. But anything that he's read, he writes for Crisis Magazine. He's also part of a group called Touchstone, which is another online journal article website. So check out him. There's so many more books I could recommend. I would love to recommend more. If you have questions about books on specific topics or subjects, I'd love to share those with you. But for now, I'll leave you with those. Thanks very much. God bless.